Good afternoon, members of the class. We are going to week 9 of our class, and we're looking at digital humanities in historical research. Our concentration will actually be on the application to African historical scholarship. And number 2, I will also advise that you do some research on the application, the utilization in humanities scholarship, particularly in Nigeria. Those of Nigerian scholars in the humanities who have engaged with digital humanities, and for those of them who are historians, you also find them useful. Somebody like Koya again, who published recently on AI. Somebody like Francis Ebukare, Ronke Demo, Atilorin. So it would be good for you to be familiar with the work of some of these scholars to help you to engage with the process, how far people have utilized these tools, and how it can also help you with your work. But one or two quick announcements. If you have submitted your assignment, you are very free to withdraw it and submit the revised version before the deadline. And I'm giving this as a warning, as a very strong warning. I'm very familiar with the use of AI to write essays, but it is very disgusting if you copied straight from AI and submitted to me as your assignment. Don't think I'm stupid. I graduated from that department. I schooled at the London School of Economics. I studied at Harvard. So, and University of Maryland College. So I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. So if you know that you just transposed what AI forwarded to you, what in fact it was ChatGPT that one of you used and copied it and put the name on top of it. So, but I'm not going to mention the names. So if you use ChatGPT, all I do is just to copy it into ChatGPT. I know that this is what I just took a look once and I saw where it came from. And when you begin to quote references that you have never read, it's disgusting. You are quoting references in Portuguese and Spanish, which you don't even understand. You know the pronunciation of the name of the author. I can't even redact some of those things from your write-up. It's laziness. It's laziness. And I wasn't expecting, I got so much good report about the class from Professor Adesoji that I was really encouraged that for once we have a set that we can work with. And for some of you to come to me with things that are obviously worse than plagiarism, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it. You can make it your speaking points for your presentations, but when you write up, please let there be some originality. And when you quote experiences from different countries that you have never been, you are not familiar with the scholarship, you just read them in either Google gave them up to you, or most likely ChatGPT or some other AI. The least you can do is to internalize them. The least you can do is to engage with them to make sure that you put yourself into the picture, that your own element comes out strongly, not this lazy attitude. So please, make sure you, but the days of unknown, God has forgiven. You don't know some of the things that I ran at. I don't know if any of you were ever, I don't think any of you was ever my student. Probably the only person close to it will have been Chief Odole, whose sister was my student. Okay. So you are never, probably never in the generation of the students that went through me. So, but probably the last set I'm going to teach before I leave the system. But please don't aggravate me with things that are avoidable. I demand so much of myself. So if I demand of you something, please know that I'm not asking of you what I don't ask of myself already. So you can have speaking points, but when you write essays, please put some originality into it, put some thoughts into it. So you are free to withdraw the assignment. You are free to withdraw the assignment and send me the final version and tell me this is the final version of what you are submitting. Any of you can, if anybody is not online, tell them this is what I said. Okay? So don't let us be on the wrong side of each other. It's unfortunate that you don't pay attention when when I say some things. And it's very unfortunate and annoying. Okay? Let's make sure that what happened last week is also the last time that kind of thing will happen. And this habit of me waiting for you in the class, let us minimize, let us get out of it. Get out of it. Let us get out of it. If it's my in-person class, there are only 6 of you, I lock the door a minute past. So if you come late, you're out of the class. I'm not in the habit of having my class interrupted. So be it as it may, if you have any questions, observations, things that you want to seek clarification on, you are very free to ask now before we go into the discussion. Today is going to be fairly short because all we're going to do is just to introduce you to the topic and expect you to engage with the issues in a practical way yourself. Many people get afraid of when they hear of DH as if it is the end of the world, but it is not. And many of you are using the tools already. ChatGPT is one of the tools of digital humanities. People use it to write essays, people use it to do research, which I expect you to do research, but not to copy or to essay. So if there are comments before we start, otherwise we just start. Chivara Lubagwe, you have any comments?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Excellent. I appreciate your matured approach to the issues. I must tell you that.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your matured approach to the issues. And try to rein in your fellow students. I know you had, if you are not gone into other areas of business and life, if you are going to academics, you yourself will be a professor by now, so don't let us even go to that. But please make sure you get people to do what is right. So we're looking at digital humanities in historical research. And what we're trying to achieve today is very simple. For those who don't know yet, to understand the concept of digital humanities, the growth of digital humanities from the 1940s to contemporary times, and the relevance to historical research, but more importantly, also the Introduction to African Historical Scholarship. Okay. When did we start? When did we plug into it as scholars in Africa? And remember that African scholars are not limited to those practicing on the continent. We have some of our colleagues who are African scholars, but in the diaspora. Somebody like Akin Gudiro, who finished from IFE in 87, read archaeology, was our student, is doing so well. But these are people who are engaging with the tools in a serious way. So the application to African historical scholarship is not just by scholars in Africa working on Africa, but also scholars outside Africa working on Africa. And there are databases, okay, developed on Africa, not based in Africa, okay? There are databases that are digital tools that apply to African scholarship that are domiciled in England, and then there's those that are of Africa, concentrated on Africa specifically, but actually they are not domiciled on the African continent, but you have access to them anywhere you are in the world. Then you should be able to explore digital archives yourself. It's one of the things we discussed when we were talking about archives about 3-4 weeks ago, in which we talk about digital archives and the need for you to be able to plug into it as well. Databases, text analysis for historical studies. Then what are the benefits and challenges? They have benefits, they have challenges. There are things that you know that it helps with our work. Particularly for those who are just coming as researchers, you need to embrace the tools. And then you should be able to engage with case studies, particular case studies that demonstrate application of digital tools, digital humanities in historical research. So if I give you an assignment to look at a particular case studies of the application of digital tools in this particular area, then you should be able to engage with it. So we have about 4 or 5 things to do. Number one is ask ourselves, what is digital humanities, the historical development of digital humanities, then integrating digital humanities into African historical scholarship, then contributions of digital humanities to African historical research methods, then key digital tools and methods. This will be things we will find along the line as we're discussing the contributions, and then challenges and ethical considerations. But also ethical considerations, particularly in collecting data. The kind of thing we're doing, you will have noticed if you use Zoom very well, that if anybody is recording, okay, the system will alert you that this thing is being recorded. I don't know whether you notice it. And it's for a reason. Because if you don't want to be recorded, you have a right to object. Okay? But if you don't want to be recorded for a class like this, I can also tell you, you are very free to exit. Okay? But everybody must be aware that this is being recorded. For those of you using smartphones, some of you have recording feature when you are making a telephone call. For those using US versions of those phones, you cannot record anybody without the person's approval. So, in fact, the recording feature has been taken out of most phones. Why? Because you cannot just record people and use the information in future without their permission. So there are ethical issues with collating, with developing the, what do you call it, the databases that you use for digital scholarship. It's even for scientists, you know that there are of research, particularly when it comes to human research. Okay. When I was going to see the ophthalmologist about the cyst on my eyes, by the time they were taking the pictures, they took specific permission from me to take the pictures. And before taking the pictures, they also agree that they're not going to show the face so that anybody can recognize the person. So except they tell you that this is the person, you just see the feature or you know the persons by iris and other things. So when you are keeping somebody's record, it has to be with their permission and all that. So these are all things that you need to take into consideration. Wait, unfortunately, there's no seminar today. So what is digital humanities? I don't know whether anybody wants to try. What is digital humanities? What, in your opinion, what in your own understanding is digital humanities? Nobody wants to talk? Or you just came to the class to listen to Radio Nigeria? What is it? Chief, you are smiling, you are laughing or smiling. Which one?
Sir, I thought I was muted when you said we will just come to listen to Radio Nigeria.
Oh, you thought you were muted.
I thought
You
I
are
was muted,
muted.
sir.
You are muted, but I can see your face.
Okay, sir. So, just to now digital humanities, for me, sir, I will only be able to synchronize meanings of digital and then humanities and then synchronize them. Maybe it will make sense.
Yeah,
So because
that's a
again,
good way to start. Yeah.
this is new to me. So I will really try to make sense out of it, if you permit me, sir.
So,
So digital, by all inclination, means um, something that is electronic in nature that has to do with technology.
okay,
Now, with today's technology, humanities, on the other hand, are subjects that are related to human nature that comprises of sociology, history, and sometimes anthropology's work in all. So if we are now saying digital humanities, that may also sum up to mean those sociological, historical, and anthropological works combined together in a digital form, in an electronic or technology-based form. So that's my submission, sir.
one way, I mean, I like the approach of interrogating the content through the keywords. Because if you can look at keywords, okay, it can also help you to get to where you are going. Yes, I saw Adewale's hand up. What happened? Were you afraid? You thought Chief has already said everything? Said
Yes, I
everything?
think yes,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
just speak. Just
Okay,
speak.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Just as you have explained earlier, which Chief has also mentioned, sir, that digital, it's a kind of interdisciplinary approach that blends both traditional humanistic inquiry, like our usual literature, review, history, maybe even philosophy, English, or cultural studies, then with some other computational techniques, such as maybe data analysis and other artificial intelligence.
Right. Yeah, those are the things. So you could see that it's not so much of rocket science or esoteric thing that we can all relate to. Things like data mining, you do it every day. People do it every day. Journalists do it every day. Investigators do it every day. They pick your phone to get data out of it. And what they can use to do anti-corruption investigation or criminal investigation. You can also use it for normal research. Okay, so those are the key areas. So, digital humanities interdisciplinary field that integrates computational tools and methodologies with traditional humanities scholarship to enhance research and answer dissemination. So, when you use, when I was an undergraduate, in fact, when I was even a graduate student for my master's, that was my first time when I engaged with the laptop, the computer, okay, for my work. When we were doing analysis, and we had to go to our friends in science to help us run the data and come with the results. And then they give you the statistics, and then you have to go and interpret. I don't know how many of you have done that kind of thing, in which you run your own research, you give it to your friends, and then they will run it on their system, and then they will give you the data. And so we used to see science, computer, as things that are not relevant to us. Okay? And when I bought my first desktop, and when I came back from England with my desktop and I was doing everything on Vi, people in the department say, what's he doing with a computer? Now, if you don't have one, you are the one who is in the back, you are in the dark ages. So we need to move with time, some of them. So when you say digital archive, it involves using digital tools, methods to study humanities, like Chief was saying, literature, sociology, anthropology, history, art. All of these are things that you can use digital tools to study. And for us in history, digital humanities, it has revolutionized the method of doing things, okay? By enabling new forms of inquiry, new forms of analysis, new forms of presentation. You don't have to do it the traditional way. I don't know whether I'm making sense. Traditional way in which empirical data is still key to our work. But how you analyze the empirical data matters in ways that can ease up some of the things you are doing. And the way you present. For me, for instance, and this is a little digression, by the time I was leaving Ife by the time I was dean, by the time I became dean of the faculty in 2003, and I started to do less teaching, things were already changing for me. But at that time, you do your traditional teaching in the class, you go to the class, you use the whiteboard or blackboard or whatever they call it, okay? But in the first month, when we started in the university in Osun, when I started as pioneer VC, all our classrooms were equipped with digital tools. But the classrooms were few at that time. So eventually we limited them to the major classrooms on each campus. We put in what they call it now, the board, the digital board. Everything was connected to the internet. So even your teaching was revolutionized. So by the time I came back, I couldn't relate because I just can't go to the class and be writing anything on the board. I do all my presentations online. I do all my presentations on PowerPoint. And by the way, PowerPoint is big. I mean, before you know, PowerPoint will become a thing of the past. There are other ways of doing these things now. So, what am I saying? It helps us to do it in a different way that people can relate to. So your inquiry, the way you do your research, the way you interpret, the way you analyze, and the way you present, okay, by the time you engage with the humanities, these things change. It helps us to analyze data, to manage our sources and visualize information in a way that wasn't possible before computer. 30, 40 years ago, if I'm teaching this course, of course, I'll be in the class with you. I'll give you books to read. You come to the class with fat books, and we do. It wasn't wrong. Go. Don't let me give you the bread. It wasn't wrong. But for all of us, it's easier now. For those of you who go online to plagiarize material, it's because the materials are available online. If they're not available, they cannot plagiarize it. When I got to the NUC in 2012, I did a paper for the executive secretary to look at the dangers posed by online sites offering thesis for sale, offering BA thesis, BSc thesis, HND dissertations, masters and PhD for sale. And if you pick a topic, you can look for a topic on their line, and then they can, if you pay a particular amount, they give you the code, you download the thesis. So many of them. I can show you. I have them on my system. And then if you pay an additional sum, you can upgrade that material to master's level or upgrade it to PhD. All this in Nigeria. Some of the sites are in Jos, some in Aba, some, but now it's even worse. So these things were not possible before the era of computer, before the era of computing, or before the era of large-scale computing being introduced to the humanities. So it's not as if it's all, I don't know what to call it, is it all positive or negative, whatever it is. But that is just the reality, okay? And when you are looking at the historical development, how did things start, okay? From about the mid-20th century, the intersection between computer and humanities has continued to evolve. When you have the time, ask for this book, which we produced in the faculty when I was doing, what's the title now? Locating the local and the global. I'll get the title for you, in which we had participants in our faculty conference from the earth sciences, from social sciences, from the faculty of tech, from faculty of science, because we are looking at how these things relate, how they come together. So the first phase was in the 1940s to 1960s. Those are the early computational roots. And it wasn't just Africa, even in the US, even in the Western world, the use of computer for work was something that was evolving in the 40s, 1950s, and even early 60s. When you have the time, watch this film, Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures, if you find the thing. So when you watch a film like Hidden Figures, you see the root of use of computer in the space research. Okay? At that time, it was, and what do you call analysis they were doing. The introduction of computer took a longer time, but from the 40s to 60s, those were the early years, and the focus was on quantitative methods such as geometrics, that is statistical analysis in history, and then stalometry, that is analyzing writing styles. And statistical analysis in history, we did quantitative analysis, quantitative research methods just last week, or when was it? So these are things that started at that time. The second phase was in the 70s, okay, to 1980s, with the digitization of databases, digitization of records, and the emergence of databases. So humanities computing, the digitization project, things like dictionaries were being digitized. Initially, you have to carry your Oxford Advanced Learners, and You carry it about. But now you have everything is online for you. Hypertext, in which you can access materials online. So that's the era of digitization. That's the putting things in the form that easily accessible and creating databases that you can refer to, you can go back to. The beauty of digitization is that you don't have to remember everything. You can always go back to it. So for a class like this, if you have issues with understanding what you are doing, you can always go back to uh, the recording, okay, to get where we are, to get where you are. Of course, 1990s, that's the era of the internet. Uh, and in fact, that itself is something else because the era of the internet uh, exploded everything. Okay. Suddenly, you can ask Google. Suddenly, you can ask Siri. I remember my daughter, she was just how old at the time? Maybe about 9, maybe 8, 9. I don't think she was 10 yet. Telling her, young woman, you must know how to use the library. I was teaching her the use of the library. She said, what do I need to go to the library for? Ah. So what do you need to go to the library for? He said, everything is on my phone now. That's what I need. I asked Siri for it. I said, God, help this generation. And that is what the internet has done. I have a mentee, one of my mentees in the church, who is into computer. The son, all he had known his life was computer, was tablet and everything. So one day he was struggling with the father for the tablet. He said, give me that thing, www. That's all he had known. www. That's the language he was used to. www. I don't know whether I'm making sense to you. So the era of the internet changed everything. Suddenly, everything we want is available online. Democratization of access to materials. If you go to Google Scholar now, you'll be amazed at the amount of materials that have been made available for us, for scholars to use as we grow. Uh, institutionalization of center with centers like Institute of Advanced Technology Humanities. These are all things. That era changed everything. I remember the first time we started using internet and email at IFE. It was about 1995, 96. IFE was one of the first in the country to have internet on the campus, to have internet in the school. There were colleagues from the University of Jos who came to IFE to come and use the internet. I'm sure you won't imagine that kind of thing happening now. There was a colleague of ours in IFE. He applied for a fellowship. I think either in the US or UK, a postdoctoral fellowship, and they asked him to attach his thesis, his PhD thesis to the application. The fellow carried a hard copy of his PhD thesis to computer center. I took it to Mr. Shoba Ogunwole, who was manning the place. He was the one that we had to get. He's the one that was granting access to the various computers where we do internet at that time. Not these days that everybody has it on his phone. I gave the thing to Mr. Ogunwole and said, can you help me attach this to my application? So the level of ignorance was massive. But that was the beginning of a revolution in the place. Because by 2, 3 years later, you can't even recognize what had happened. I I remember having to send a message to Professor Lukman way back in January 1992. I was at uh, I was at University of Maryland in College Park, and I was to send him a document. So he said, "Shall I fax it now?" That was the first time I was using the fax machine. That's January 92. It was the first time I was using the fax machine. And I took the thing, I went to the department, I put it in the machine. Then remember the thing started coming out to the other side. Professor Lukman and called me and said, sure, okay, it's here now. I said, what? Where? I'm just sending it. He said, yes, it's automatic. It comes immediately. And that was the reality of the internet, the reality of technology for me. That I could put a document into a machine in College Park in Maryland, and Professor Lukman was receiving it immediately in Davis in California. Some 6.5, some 5 hour, 6 hour air travel away, some 3,000, 4,000 miles away. You can imagine the impact. But that wasn't all. By 1996, no, 1996, when internet had become exploded, I sent an email to a colleague in London. And by evening, I called the fellow. No, he called me back. And he started discussing what I sent him. I said, oh, have you received it? He was like, have you received it? The email is an instant message. And it tells you that even for those of us that were familiar with computing, computational methods and technology, at that time, it was still something that was amazing. And it makes our work so much easier. So when you begin to see databases that are available everywhere, it's easier for you to relate to it. Time is going. Let's finish this class. And then, of course, the present day, the days of big data and AI, which is where we are now. And for every stage, I want you to begin to know the need to be very cautious on the utilization of these tools. Because this is the time of big data, integrating AI into our work. In 3 years, AI has become something else. ChatGPT has become something else. ChatGPT 40 has become something else. So with a few keys on your laptop or your desktop or your computer, you have access to millions of documents. But remember that you are not the only one with that access. When you tell ChatGPT to give you an information, you can specify the kind of things you want. Okay? And sometimes I tell students, even if you don't know the thing, and to start your research with ChatGPT, it will help you to focus what you are doing. So that era is where we are now. It's the era in which everything is madness. Now, for us in Africa, including Nigeria, of course, integration of DH into historical research, into humanities research, it has evolved in response to global technologies and advancements. Okay, it took some time before some people caught up. I I remember that when the mobile phone was introduced in 2000, 2001, many of my colleagues in Ife refused to get a mobile phone. They said they don't need it. Now, I don't know if anybody can say the same thing today. Local needs, technological changes will force you to do some things. Somebody called uh, the mobile phone as a weapon of mass distraction. But I'm also sure that you remember that, as well back in the 70s, the 70s and even the 80s and 90s. In deeper life, the television is called what? What do they call it? How many of you know what the deeper life people call TV? Eh? Chief, what do they call TV in the deeper life?
I wouldn't know, sir.
Those are not deeper life.
I
Who
don't know. I
knows?
don't know much about deeper life, sir.
It's a common knowledge. It's common. It's very common. You don't know what they call it? Devil's box.
Hmm.
So
Why is that? How?
this in which all sorts of iniquities are seen on the on the screen. But it was a losing approach. I don't know whether it's a losing approach because uh, you are left behind when your competitors are utilizing the tools. Deeper life, they were not playing drums before. They were clapping in the church. If you open a church today and all you do is clapping, you're the only one that will be there, you and your children. So technology has impacted lives across ranges of issues, ranges of areas. So when it comes to scholarship, why the adoption was much later than what happened in the Western world, in the developed world, and the adoption came much later in African countries. Okay, the truth is that we could not afford to be permanently left behind. And the reason is very simple. The technological access was poor, low digital tools, internet penetration. Even today, even till today, internet is a problem. Many people have difficulties accessing the internet. By 2020, when COVID-19 started, that was when we realized how far behind we were. Because when the world moved online, many of us were still struggling. So internet penetration was low, digital infrastructure was poor, and of course, the adoption in Africa was very, very low, was very slow compared with other regions of the world. Uh, developed, the truth is, here we are forced to integrate, we are forced to move with the world. Okay? We have to do what the world is doing. We have to connect with what others are doing. And we have to overcome our challenges. Okay? So that in the process of mainstreaming digitization into our work, we also try to look at our peculiarities. We will come to some of the challenges later in terms of developing linguistic tools. Most of our languages are not yet reduced to the language that the computer can understand. Okay? So as we develop our tools, for those of us making use of linguistic analysis for our research, you ensure that, yes, we are always, we try to engage with these things. So the next, how do you call it? The first phase, of course, was the 1990s. I've mentioned my own experiences to you. But that was the early foundations. That was the first way. But remember that by the 1990s, the world was about 50 years into digitization, even though it wasn't at the same level everywhere. But our digitization initiative started about the 1990s to 2000. That was when we had digitization initiatives. Those early efforts focused on preserving endangered archives. We've discussed the British Library's efforts in some of our previous meetings. The British Library's Endangered Archives Program was one of the things. If you go to the OAU library itself as well, the digitization of their records started about that time as well, in which they bought one fat machine like this to be, what do you call it, to use in scanning and storing the records. So today, I'm sure the OAU library, Eskayolu Assembly Library, has a lot of materials already digitized, particularly newspaper records that are useful. It started in 1990s because the reality also was that many of those records were losing value. They were disintegrating. They were being degraded as a result of age. Papers were turning pale, and multiple usage was causing deterioration of those documents. So once you digitize them, then you have them permanently. But the other issue now is, where do you store them? Okay, most of the cloud storage that are reliable are abroad, outside the country. Even your, what do you call it, websites, many of them hosted in Nigeria, but officially in Nigeria, but the cloud storage is outside the country. So those are the early projects. There are also digital projects in various places. Like I said, the OAU library has its own to digitize its records. UI had its own, and I think Usuka too. Then there are oral history preservation, and we tried that in the department as well. We had a center for oral documentation, which was in the room next to the faculty board room. Two rooms away from the faculty board now. Now, those are attempts to digitize records. Those were the early years. So when we were digitizing oral tradition, and again, it was a real life issue. People that had this information were dying off. And we then realized that it is possible to get the knowledge from them, put them into permanent form. So apart from recording with, what do you call it, media recorders and all these, recorders, you can also do multimedia recording. So the person that is talking, you can actually see, record, and put in the archive. So if you go to NTA, but you go to the, unfortunately, it's sad, though, very sad. Many of our TV stations, their records, they are reusing their tapes. And when they reuse the tapes, they destroy what have been there before. Okay? And this is sad. So, but the preservation document project started about that time. Now, in the 2010s, was there of expansion and collaboration with international partnerships between African universities and foreign institutions, say between the University of Ghana and the Library of Congress, between the University of Cape Town and some institutions abroad. One, it was good for everybody because it gave access to these overseas institutions, to these foreign countries, to our own materials. Why for us, it was also helping us to preserve our documents on a permanent basis. So that was the era of collaboration, era of expansion. And then we had cultural heritage projects, the Timbuktu manuscripts during the 2000s. They digitized thousands of Islamic manuscripts that were in Mali. And those are the days, I don't know whether we mentioned this at one of our meetings, when we start talking about countering those narratives that all we had in Africa were oral records, that is only oral tradition. But there were Arabic materials, Islamic manuscripts in Mali and Upper Volta. Yes, that's Mali, yeah. So these are records that existed. They might not have had written history in the traditional European way, but we had the written history in Arabic materials. And you know that a lot of trade took place between the savannah and the desert area. So all of those things, there were records of transactions, record of economic trade with them, one way or the other. Of course, the third era is the present one of innovation and decolonization. Now, the decolonization of our archives is taking place. Era of innovation, trying to make things differently, localizing the tools, developing platforms that actually relate to us, that are specifically made for communities. And in those process, you are able to get culturally sensitive. That is, you look at the peculiarities of the community. The things that are peculiar to us, the things that we value, the things that we appreciate, we take note of them. The ethical issues, the ethical conflicts are taken into consideration. So, look at the three critical phases: the early years in the 90s to 2000, and then the era of collaboration and expansion, in which we were working with agencies outside the continent, those that were both benefiting from us and we were also benefiting from them. They were having access to our materials, we are having them in a permanent form. Now, what will you consider let's even brainstorm. What will you consider the contributions, or what is likely to have been the contributions of digitization to African historical research in the period since they have been introduced? What do you think have been the contributions? Any takes? What do you think will have been the contributions? Even for you as a scholar, what do you think has been the value of digitization of our records, the digital humanities approach? What has been the value? Comments, questions? What's the time now? Okay, 11. Okay, spoken for about 50 minutes. Okay, fine. Yes. What do you think are the contributions? Unmute yourself and speak. If you want to raise your hand, you know where the control is on your system. Akande, what are the contributions? Or you don't want to talk?
I want to talk, but I'm not sure if I'm right, sir.
You're right. Just say it. Because if you
I
don't
think
know it, if you already know everything, why are you in the class?
okay, sir.
So
But I
never
think
be reluctant to say things because you don't think you are right. No, I'm not looking for perfect students. So I'm not
okay,
perfect
sir.
myself. So please, don't ever underrate yourself. Yeah.
I think one of the contributions of the digital this thing is easy to access. These days that almost everybody, even people that are old, our grandpas and grandmas are on WhatsApp and they are trying to feel among. So it's to me, I think it's very, very easy to access than
Okay.
going, because last time I went to the library, I was so stressed with the catalog, finding the book and all. It was even before I got what I was looking for, I'm already stressed already. Unlike when I'm with my phone, I just try and search what I want to search. So easy to access anytime, any day, midnight, anytime.
Access to materials is there. It's not okay. That is one. Okay. Any other takes before we? What is the contribution to historical research? Because I don't know whether. Okay, it's a different project I was working on, looking at the creation of memories. Okay, African memories in the diaspora. How did the current, the new diasporas, how did they create their new identities in the new lands? The technology has really helped when they create WhatsApp groups, when they create Google groups online, when they create chat groups, it helps to keep memories. And this information, you find your friends, you find people that may not even find your friends, may find people with similar background online, and it helps you to connect. So all of those things are there. Okay, other takes. So you don't want to talk? You are muted. You're speaking to yourself. Remove the red mark on your microphone. I think it's frozen. Hello. Yes, while waiting for him, other contributions. Chief Oladubagwe, other contributions. Okay, let's go on. We shouldn't wear ourselves out with too much.
There isn't much contribution from me, sir.
Why? They are not using it.
Well, it's not like that because my link has been on and off because it started windy and getting rainy here in Elisha. So I really, it was breaking. So I only had the last part of what are the contributions that this has made. And I only got information from what Okoyemi's answer was for me to link to what the question really was. So I don't really have a good idea of the question.
Wind and rain is disturbing you. You don't have rainmaker in Elisha again?
Sir?
You don't have rainmaker in Elisha again?
Well, I don't
It's
know
raining,
that.
and the network has been going on and off. It's really, really crazy with the network. It's raining here too, sir. Network is been acting up.
Network are you using?
So I can barely hear anything.
It's nothing to do with the network. Which network do you use, Akade?
Airtel MiFi, sir.
Airtel.
Airtel MiFi, sir. Yeah.
MiFi is a good one now. It's a good. Except maybe your area is not good with Airtel network.
It was very, very when we started. I had to put my laptop behind my ear. That's why you are not seeing my face when we started. But now it reduced a bit because the noise was too much, and I'm not with headset. So I was raising my laptop to my ear.
If you even sent a text message that it's raining in Elisha, okay. Okay. Shall we continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see. What are the things we should look at, we should consider in terms of number one is the digitization and accessibility. Okay. That's when you are talking of with the condition of digital humanities to historical research, African historical research. Digitization of our records, making them easily accessible. I think it was Akade who said it, that now you can get things much more easily. Okay. But before that is the fact that when you digitize, it makes it permanent. Okay. So preservation of fragile archival materials, the Major Archives program of the British Library. Okay. They help us to safeguard the records such that you don't have to worry about fire outbreak consuming the record, because even if you consume the record, it's still in the cloud where it is stored. Okay. Indigenous manuscripts, oral histories, all of them are now digitizing them and preserving them. Okay. Anti-colonial reclamation. Now, digitization of anti-apartheid materials and past colonial narratives. These are things in a country like South Africa. In South Africa as a country, you know their records, you know their history, and people are trying to rewrite history. Again, when we have them digitized and in permanent form, where it cannot be destroyed easily, and then we can look at how it has been seen from a different perspective rather than the jaundice perspective of the, what do you call it? The second area of contribution is oral history, okay, and multimodal digital humanities. Digital oral histories has been with us now. So at the end of the day, just give me a moment. Okay. Now, of the contributions is digital oral history. You know that oral history is critical to studying the African past. Yes, we have made progress. We've also demonstrated that yes, we have quite a bit of written materials in the past, which we are now digitizing and making part of our history, and making part of our materials, making part of the sources that we're using. But when we digitize the oral records, it also helps us. Okay. Then language revitalization, the endangered languages, and I feel sorry for us as a continent. But for those engaged in what do you call it, digitization effort, it has helped to preserve some of these things. Of course, there is spatial analysis. Okay, GIS mapping, the trans-Saharan slave trade. The GIS mapping has helped us to map pre-colonial trade, the trans-Saharan networks, look at the slave trade databases. This has helped us to, to integrate the departure points where slaves are taken, the quantity as much as possible. I don't know if you have traveled to the US, to UK, but if you have, and if you're a regular traveler, I want you to go beyond going to Liverpool Street to do shopping. Do some visits to museums and archives. If you go to the African American Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., in Detroit, in fact, you will feel like taking a gun and take it to the past to kill these people, what the people went through. But it has helped us to create databases on what has happened in the past. And then, of course, public engagement and crowdsourcing, community participation in transcribing records, it let people know what materials you are looking for, and you are sourcing materials from different places. Oh, if anybody asks something on this topic, can you please share it with us? Okay, this has been made possible by digital humanities. Of course, mobile technology, use of apps to share historical content, bridge urban rural divide. And of course, ethical and decolonial practices. I was discussing with you is it the dangers or the fact that you must get permission of people before you record them? But also, most importantly, is who has ownership of the material that is developed? Who has ownership of the data you are able to gather? Who has ownership of the sources you are able to put together, either through oral interviews or through archival work, and which are not digitizing? Who has the ownership? For data, of course, it's us, okay? Well, because we cannot afford to have digital neocolonialism in which we still depend on the white man for everything. And it has also mainstream marginalized voices, okay? There have been projects on digital knowledge that challenge exclusionary historical narrative. So all these are areas where we have gained or benefited from digital humanities, digitization of our processing. Let's conclude. Okay, this should be the final 2 more slides, and then we'll close. What are the challenges? What are the future directions? What are the things we should be looking at? What are the challenges so far? Number one is infrastructure gaps. You have been lamenting today that the rain has been disturbing your internet. But you see, we make it sound as if it's only on a part of the world that it happens. It's not. Where I am now, okay, where I am, a couple of weeks ago, there was a very strong wind, and it affected our internet. It affected the internet to the point that I had to go and buy mobile data because I had a meeting. If I had 2 major meetings that day, and the home-based internet was dislodged by the wind. Okay? So when you have challenge, don't think it only applies where you are. About a week ago, it was windy. The internet will go and will come. It was because I didn't have a meeting at that particular time that I wasn't affected. I was affected because what I was doing, my internet will come back. Okay? So if I were having a meeting like this and that wind was blowing, what do you think would have happened? Any magic. I'm not the owner of the internet. It will also affect me. So, but infrastructure gaps. So infrastructure gaps is not just for us, but it's more pronounced in a part of the world. I hope I'm making sense to you. It affects everybody, but it affects us more. Limited internet access. The access to internet has increased. The ratio of people who have access to the internet has increased significantly in the last couple of years, but it's still so minuscule compared with the larger population. Okay? If you look at how the so-called illiterates, the artisans, how they're deploying digital tools for their trade, you realize that we should be ashamed, those of us who say we are educated. Once upon a time, the mechanic wants to fix something in your car. You give him money, he travels from Ilesha to Ibadan to go and buy parts at Gbagi. And then he will travel all the way back. Today, you know what they do? I'm very sure you know what they do. The man looks at what he wants to buy. He calls the supplier in Ibadan or Lagos. He gives him the parts. The man tells him the price. He transfers the money on his phone. The man takes it to the motor park in Ojota and delivers it in his house in Ife or Ilesha. Nobody travels except the man that is meant to travel because that's his work, the traveler. So he carries, and the owner of the vehicle who is carrying the thing charges 3,000 to transport the thing from Lagos to Ilesha. He doesn't. He adds additional money in his pocket. So some people are taking advantage of the little that we have. But our problem is the fact that that access, the infrastructure gap is more pronounced with us than in other places. Electricity is a problem. Band A, band B. You spend your salary. If you have a air conditioner in your house and you are using it every day, your salary will finish in 1 week. That's if it lasts up to that. Electricity access, internet reliability, all of these things, we don't need to overemphasize. Linguistic diversity is number 2. Okay. Most digital tools, humanities lack support for African languages. So they need to develop tools for machine translation. We need to develop more local tools that will address our own needs, that will address our peculiarities. So those are part of the challenges. So even when the technology is there, sometimes it may not serve our purpose yet, until we're able to, make it specific to our own situation. Then funding and training is part of the challenge. Many times we rely on foreign money, donor money to help us train our people. It's part of the challenge. And their own priorities may be different from our own. And remember that who pays the piper? You know what they say. Who pays the piper dictates the tune. So if somebody is using their money to train your people, don't expect that they're doing it not just pro bono. Don't expect that they're training it without any hidden motives. They also have their own, there are some things that they must gain from the process. Of course, part of the challenge is ensuring ethical practices in data collection. When you are recording people, when you are getting materials, when you are storing materials, that part of the challenge is we must realize that we are dealing with human beings. And then who owns the data you are collected? Who owns the materials you are collected? Who owns the materials you are digitizing? Okay, who claims the copyright on some of these things? So let's conclude. Who are those? Chief Warren said, you can hardly hear me. Is everybody in that position?
I think I was able to put in an earphone, so I think it's better now, sir.
It's even good for you because I'm about to close. The class is about to finish. So, I've given my conclusion. Digital humanities in Africa is transforming historical research, okay, by blending technology with the colonial practice, the way we do things, okay. Technology are decolonizing the processes. If you have been familiar with decolonizing scholarship, decolonizing African scholarship, which has taken over the space in the last 5 years, it's coming also at the time of digital humanities. So from preserving oral traditions to mapping pre-colonial empires, mapping pre-colonial trade routes, mapping trade routes, slave routes, and other things. DH is empowering African scholars to reclaim the narratives and engage with global audiences. So we're able to not just put our stamp on the process, we're also engaging with the larger international network, national community. It's okay. Our future success hinges on addressing infrastructural inequities, fostering local innovation, and ensuring ethical collaboration. So these are critical issues. You should avert your mind to these things because if you are going to take full advantage of what technology has to offer, we must address the infrastructural challenges, both at the systemic level and at the personal level. When the British Library makes available its own digital archives for scholars around the world, they won't say because rain is falling in Elisha that they will shut down their system. People from other parts of the world will have access to it just like anybody else. So we have to put ourselves in a position where we can benefit from it. That's what I'm making sense to you. By the time we keep lamenting, complaining, I'll tell you a story. It's just to do an analogy. When Rauf Aregbesola became the governor, I had a meeting with him and we were discussing the education, the status of education in Osun. And we're looking at the performance of students in senior secondary school examinations and the percentage of students that were failing. So when he was lamenting that Osun was number what in the, I said, look, it's a national problem which we need to look for holistic solution, because if the fish is getting rotten, it drops from the head. So if the national framework is terrible, then we have a lot of work to do at the subnational level. Rauf told me, he said, VC, nothing concern me with Nigeria. I'm the governor of Osun, and this must be better in Osun. And the analogy I'm giving you is this. You have to position yourself as an individual to take advantage of what is available. If you surrender yourself to the general narrative, oh, it's everywhere, there is no network, everywhere, nobody's having access, oh, internet is difficult. It's your responsibility to ensure that you have internet access for this kind of work. Okay? So, as a nation, as a people, as a continent, we need to improve the infrastructure. But at the individual micro level, we also need to position ourselves to take advantage of what's available rather than lament all the time. Fostering local innovation will help us. Why? Because it helps us to address the issue at the locally specific level that meets our individual needs. Of course, when we do it, ethics is very, 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 very important. So that's where we are. Like I said, of course, I can't cover all the grants in one session like this, but what I've done is to introduce you to the basics, okay? How it started from the 1940s, okay, till its introduction to African scholarship, okay? How we also plugged into it, and we looked at what it has contributed in terms of its contributions to historical research, our methods issue, and then what the challenges have been. Are there comments you want to make? Comments or questions before we close? Comments, questions, comments, questions.
Yes, sir. Prof, sir.
Okay.
Okay, please pardon me because so some of the later part of the class was not so audible for me to hear. So I just want to know, sir, that is it the summary of what the class, this particular topic is about? Is it about the introduction of the digitization process in managing the work of, historians, or how it got introduced into historical research? Is that what this is meant to teach us, sir?
Can anybody help him? I can read you are online throughout. Can you help him?
I could not get the
Don't
question
like
very
him
well. I
enough.
think he's trying to say the digital. Are you with me, sir?
Yes, I'm listening.
Sir?
Continue.
Yes, sir. I think he's trying to ask if the digital digital humanities, maybe we are concentrating this particular topic, maybe we are concentrating on historical research or we are talking about humanities generally. I think
No,
that's what he's trying to
that
ask.
was not my question. My question is
What is
that I wanted to know if the purpose of this particular uh, class of digital humanities is meant to teach us when digitization crept in into historical work and the effect that it has on, humanity in general. That was my question.
we tried to
Um,
do? What we tried to do, I can summarize as this. When we started, I asked you to try to define digital humanities. Remember?
Yes, sir.
I think,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I had about 2 or 3 people. You said you tried to interrogate it by looking at the 2 words, right?
Yes, sir.
So what we try to do today is on when you hear digital humanities, what does it mean? Okay. When you talk
Yes,
about
sir.
digital humanities, we've demonstrated that it's not an esoteric thing. It's not rocket science. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is digital humanity? How did it develop? What are the components? How did it develop? And did it extend to Africa? When did it extend to African scholarship? We looked at the evolution from the 1940s, okay, through to the 1990s and the 2010s, the era of AI, where we are now,
Yes, sir.
the current generation. We looked at the evolution from the simple digitization of records, archival records, to the use of AI in scholarship. Okay. And then we now look at the continent, African researchers. When did we begin to adopt digital tools of digital humanities for our scholarship? And we look at the challenges and look at the prospects. Is it the prospects, or look at what the future, what we need to address if we're going to take advantage of it fully in future? Those are the key areas we discussed today. I don't know whether it makes sense to you.
Yes,
Uh,
it does, sir. It
okay.
does, sir. Thank
So
you very
it's
much,
not
sir.
just enough to, how do I put it now? Know what it is, but look at the transition, okay? How we moved from where it started in the 40s, where it wasn't even part of our own scholarship. Because as late as 1958, 59, 60, 61, characters like Ultra said we don't have history in Africa. That all we have are barbaric gyrations of undeveloped people. So you could see the transition over the years. Have we have it made sense, Chief?
Yes, sir. In a lot of sense, sir.
Okay.
So, sir, will it be right for us to now conclude that the introduction of digitization into humanities from the 40s to now has been of tremendous help and assistance to humanities, or it has actually done a lot of damage to what we ordinarily should know as humanities?
What do you think is the damage done? Well, that will help us to also refocus our mind as to how do we evaluate the contributions of digital humanities. Because when we look at contributions like digitization of records, making them permanent, putting them into accessible form, these are things we can see that
Yes, sir.
an Opeyemi in Ikire can access a material put on the British Library in Collingden in London without leaving his classroom, without leaving his bedroom, on his phone. He
Yes, sir.
can do these things. I see them in terms of advantage rather than disadvantage. When the Europeans try to seize the narrative, it's our responsibility to take it back from them. Okay? And I keep saying we shouldn't dwell on the negatives. How do we take advantage of what is available? It's more important. But if you choose to see disadvantages and destruction, then it won't be helpful at all. You will then be closing your eyes to what is really, really important. So, well, Chief himself has disappeared. Oh, he's back. Okay. Chief.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you keep disappearing.
It's raining heavily here, so it's affecting the connection, connectivity.
It's not your Igbe that is working, no.
No, sir.
It's carrying you away to where
I won't deploy that in this class, sir.
You want to deploy, let the course finish. Then you can disappear if you want. Yes, okay. Are there other comments, yes, questions?
Thank you very much, sir.
Questions? Amo, you have not opened your mouth today. Are you still afraid?
No, sir.
What?
No, sir.
All I do is just insist on standard and quality. That's all. So you have nothing to say. You have not been part of the class.
I have nothing to say, sir.
Okay. Don't worry, exam is coming. I hope you have something to say at that time. Okay. Any questions? Let your classmates that are not online know that my system is taking record of attendance. Every second you spend online is noted. So if the exam comes and I say you have not met the minimum requirement to write the exam, don't blame me, because you must meet 80% attendance record before you can write my exam. So let it be very clear. So I won't say, she sọ fún wa, kò sí dá báyìí. I don't want to listen to stories. Chief, can talk to your sister and ask about me. So
you already did.
You already history in the family?
Yes, sir.
Where did you study all history, Ibadan? Or where?
I did my undergrad in Ibadan. And my father too also did his own in Ibadan.
Voila.
My father, so he did his own in Ibadan and then University of London.
And he infected all of you?
And somehow. I think it just came natural, sir.
And you're making money through cryptocurrency. It didn't come naturally.
That's a whole different work game, sir. Sir, this thing, like sometimes when we talk about being a historian or not, I always say, look, I only read history. I cannot call myself a historian. I read history. So my father was a historian, all right, because he was also an author. He was a teacher and an author. So, but for us, for myself and my sister, we only read history. But we are into business. Yes.
Your father, was that Chief Victor? Was your father Victor Olugwagwe?
No. My father was Israel Olatunde Olugwagwe.
Was the school principal?
Yes, he was, sir. He was principal in the grammar school. He was principal in Elisha Grammar School. Elisha Grammar School. Yeah.
He used to use cane.
Cane. You mean cane to beat students, sir?
Yes.
Yes, very well.
When was it in Ife Grammar School?
Ife Grammar School, 1976 to 82.
He succeeded my uncle. No, my uncle left in 75. Was it 74?
Who was your uncle, sir?
Chief Iboye, Mr. Iboye.
Iboye, yes, Iboye. After Iboye left, then this man from Milan came, and then my father succeeded him. You see, Iboye was the second principal. After
Yeah.
Omowurare was the first, Iboye second.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah.
Then that one from Milan, I've forgotten his name, and then my father was the fourth.
Oh, okay, 76. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All my siblings that attended had left by that time. Yeah. Yeah, my brother left in 72. Another one left in 73. Yeah.
Same school, same grammar school.
Yeah. Mr. Boye was married to my aunt, my mom's younger sister. And I used to do vacation at their official quarters. Yeah.
I also passed that from the school.